Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. In this video, we're gonna take a look at this Rado Captain Cook 1962. This model has a reference number of R32500315. This model here retains the closest look to the vintage Captain Cook release in 1962. The dial has the same layout, it has the similar kind of hour markers as well as the oversized hour hand. And also the red lettering on the date wheel, it's also similar to the vintage Captain Cook release back then. This one I would say is as close as possible in getting a vintage patinated dial Captain Cook but with modern and robust materials. I did an unboxing video for this watch earlier. This model came bundled with 3 strap options and a nice leather watch roll. If you are interested to check them out, I'll put a video card up in the top right corner as well as down in the video description box below. I have been primarily wearing this watch on the mesh bracelet due to the constant need of washing and sanitizing my hands, and the leather strap might not be that suitable. Admittedly, it looks best on the leather strap. As I normally wear a more business casual attire to work, the NATO strap might look too casual except if it's a Friday. So the mesh bracelet makes more sense to me. Oh, before we dive in, I would like to point out some aspects that might put some watch fan a little off about this watch. First would be the lug width. Yep, this watch comes with a 19mm lug. It's not the end of the world, but it could be a little hard to find straps. Since I already have a 19mm lug Tudor Black Bay 36, this is not a big problem for me. Next would be the water resistance and the crown. This watch is only rated for 100 meters of water resistance and not 200 meters as with most modern dive watches. I think its 42mm brethren have 200 meters of water resistance. This watch also only comes with a push-pull crown rather than a screw-down crown. I wouldn't really go diving with this. If I really want to go diving, I would rely on a dive computer, and let's say if I really want to go old school, I will pick my Seiko divers. The final aspect that might put some off would be the movement inside the watch. It's not an in-house movement, it's something generic, it's an ETA based movement, and one of the biggest complaints, that I would foresee people would have is the lower bit rate of that movement. The movement beats at 21,600 beats per hour rather than a standard 28,800 beats per hour on most Swiss-made watches. It does, however, come with an 80 hour of power reserve. We will talk a little more about the movement later on in the video. So if you're still here and you're okay with all the 3 aspects, let's dive in a little bit more about this watch. The watch comes in at a diameter of 37mm measured from the bezel. The case itself is slightly smaller. If I were to measure the case, I think it's around 35.5mm. As you can see here, the bezel is slightly bigger than the case. The lug-to-lug distance is a short 43mm and the watch comes in at 11.5mm thick, including the dome sapphire crystal. As I mentioned earlier, it comes with a 19mm lug. The watch is made out of stainless steel and it has high polish finishing throughout. But due to this slightly oversized bezel, it doesn't look too flashy in my opinion. This is, I would say, a perfect dress diver that can be worn in any occasion. From the side, the lugs curve down nicely, making the watch hugs the wrist rather nice. It comes with a push-pull crown that is signed with a Rado anchor logo. It has a 120 click unidirectional bezel with an ceramic insert. The bezel action is clicky and good, but it could be a little loud sometimes. And it has almost or very little backplay. The dial is protected by a dome sapphire crystal that has anti-reflective coating. Under the crystal, we have a very interesting dial color. On Rado's website, Rado calls the dial color brown, but it looks like a hybrid between bronze and brass to me. The color is definitely unique, and it is one of the most unique watch dial in my collection. The dial has a nice sunburst pattern with all the hour markers printed with generous amounts of lume. I'm guessing the lume is Super Luminova C5, but I could be wrong because there is no official specs on Rado's website. Okay, before you start screaming at me for not doing a loom shot, so here is the loom shot of the watch. The lume is greenish in color. I think the brightness is okay and the longevity is not too bad either. There is a date window at 3 with a red lettering. Let me just move the hands out of the way a little bit so that we can see the date wheel a little better. If we look carefully, the date wheel is not white in color, but it has this sort of glittery, pearly, or some shimmering finish on the dial, on the date wheel, which is rather nice. And it comes with high polish hands throughout, and the oversized hour hand is staying true to the original vintage Rado Captain Cook. Well, I wish the polishing on the hands could be a little better here. And under the 12 o'clock hour marker, we have the Rado anchor logo that can rotate freely, or maybe not that freely, but it can rotate when we move the watch around. And it has a red background. I'm not sure if that's ruby, but I guess I read somewhere that the red background there is an artificial ruby. This anchor logo is something which I find very pleasing and interesting. Every time I lift my wrist to look at the time, the anchor is always in a different position. Turning the watch over, we are greeted by this very beautiful case back with 3 seahorses and stars. Engraved is also the text 1 out of 1962. I do wish Rado engraved the actual number, but anyhow, there is a unique serial number on the other side which I'm blocking with my thumb here. The movement inside this watch is an automatic C07.611. It is a modified ETA 2824. In other words, it's the same Powermatic 80 movement powering a lot of Tissot and Hamilton watches. Yup, they, including Rado, are under the same Swatch Group umbrella. It has a power reserve of 80 hours and beats at 21,600 beats per hour. The good thing is that we have a longer power reserve. If this is your Monday to Friday watch, you can basically take this watch off on a Friday evening and it will still be beating when you pick it up on a Monday morning. The lower beat rate might also mean longer service intervals, I guess. Okay, the accuracy is not too bad on this piece. I think it's very nice. Even though at a lower bit rate, it's managed to hold like from -2 to -1 seconds per day, which is very good. If you're interested to read more about the movement, I'll put a link down below for your reading pleasure. This movement is indeed an important technological achievement from the Swatch Group. Before we do a Reshot, let's talk a little about the mesh bracelet. If you are thinking the mesh bracelet is like those common mesh bracelet used on a lot of micro brand watches and affordable watches out there, you might be wrong. The clasp system is a little different here. Let me take another watch to show you the difference between the mesh bracelet on this Rado. Unlike regular mesh bracelet where you need to pre-adjust the size before putting the watch on, example, on this stern glass, you have this hook base here where you need to use a tool or a micro screwdriver to lift up this part here and slide this base on this side, on this end of the strap, to get like a good fit on your wrist before you even put the watch on the wrist. But on this Rado, you can basically adjust the size on the fly. So if you look at it, there is no base on the other side of the bracelet, and instead of a regular, what I would normally call a hook and lock system, where you basically hook this part on the base and then you press it to lock it, it's a little different on this Rado, where you can adjust the size on the fly. Basically, you lift this part up and you slide the bracelet underneath. So as you can see, as we are sliding the bracelet in and out, we can lock it in any position that we want. So basically, if you have a big wrist, this is how it's gonna be. And if you have a smaller wrist, so we push it in a little, and this is how it's gonna wear on your wrist. One good thing about this kind of bracelet is that, for example, if you go out on for example, if you go out for lunch on hot afternoon, you will have no problem adjusting the watch if your wrist swells up a little. So with that said, let's do a reshot. Alright, this is how the watch looks on my 6-inch wrist. The small diameter and the short lug to lug definitely makes this watch wear very nice on my small wrist. And if you have a bigger wrist, I don't think the watch will look overly small as well. And yes, I can still put on the bracelet nicely, and this free end here is not all the way up to the watch case, which is still good, and this is how the clasp look under my wrist. So as a whole, I think this is as close as I can get into a vintage Rado Captain Cook without the wrist that usually comes with owning a vintage watch. The color and the look are very close to the original vintage model, but with modern and reliable components that give me a sense of confidence. Job well done, Rado, and this is definitely worthy to be my first Rado, and I would highly recommend to anyone interested into getting into the Rado brand. Alright, that's it for this video. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. It does help me a lot, and you can also follow me on my Instagram at gfw_watch for more watch pictures. Till then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye bye.